They called it a clerical oversight. I called it a Tuesday. The manifest for the Chronarch Compact's 63rd displacement trial listed 41 recruits from 11 allied worlds, and somewhere between the transit manifest and the boarding queue at Corvi Anchorage, someone typed my registration into the wrong column. I wasn't supposed to be a participant. I was supposed to be baggage, a liaison escort riding along to observe, the way my instructors always sent me when command wanted an extra set of eyes on how other species trained their young. Nobody caught the error until I was already standing on the departure grate with the other 40, and by then the proctor running intake decided it was faster to let me through than explain the delay to a review board. His name was Vethric Sull, insectoid, blue chitinous, mandibles that clicked when he was irritated, and he was irritated for most of that morning. "You will observe silence in the drop," he told me, "the way you'd tell a crate to stay shut. You will not interfere with the trial. You will be extracted with the others at the boundary line, assuming you reach it." I told him I understood. I did understand. I just don't think he meant it the way I took it. The other 40 recruits on the grate weren't looking at me. They were looking at the drop hatch, or their own boots, or each other, the way you look at anything except the thing you're actually afraid of. A few had run this kind of trial before, on smaller courses with easier scenery. None of them had run the hollow approach. I could tell by the way 2 of the Chirath cadets kept checking their suit seals for a 4th and 5th time, and by the way the Tharic girl near the end of the line had gone very still and very quiet, which on a Tharic means the opposite of calm. Vethric Sull walked the line once, mandibles clicking, reciting the same 4 sentences to each recruit in turn, without changing the inflection. When he reached me, he paused half a beat longer than he had for anyone else, the way you pause on a line item that doesn't belong on the invoice, then moved on without comment. I decided that was fine. I hadn't come to be commented on. The hollow approach was a ruined sector, built for exactly one purpose: disorientation. Compact engineers had rebuilt 3 kilometers of dead city into layered districts, each dressed in the architecture and street logic of a different conquered era. A colonnaded quarter modeled on the Second Eric dynasty, a vertical hive market copied from the pre-unification Kirath years, a flooded processing district built off something the Compact wouldn't name outright. No maps, no comms, no briefing on which quarter connected to which. You dropped in alone, and you found the extraction spire before your suit's air crossed the red line, or you didn't, and a retrieval drone came to collect what was left of your file. I dropped into the colonnaded quarter with a headache and sand in my teeth. The trick, I understood inside the first 10 minutes, wasn't strength. Half the recruits in that trial could outlift me without trying. The trick was that every district had been built to punish a specific kind of panic. The hive markets stacked, mirrored corridors were murder on anyone who tried to run their way out. The mirrors doubled every dead end, until running recruits burned their air chasing reflections of doors that didn't exist. The flooded district drowned the ones who wasted breath arguing with locked hatches, instead of finding the drainage line that fed them. The colonnade, my quarter, punished stillness. It was built wide and open and quiet enough that recruits froze in it, waiting for a threat that wasn't coming, using up the one resource that actually mattered. So I didn't run, and I didn't freeze either. I found high ground, a collapsed archway with a sight line over 2 intersecting boulevards, and I sat on it for 4 minutes, doing nothing but watching drainage grates and water stains, because water runs downhill, and downhill is where a rebuilt ruin usually puts its seams. Then I picked a direction, and I didn't argue with myself about it after that. There was a moment, maybe 40 minutes in, where I got it wrong. I followed a drainage line into what I thought was a service gap and found a dead end instead. Smooth, compact plating, no seam, no give. The wrong kind of quiet on the other side of it. My suit told me I'd burned 6 minutes of air standing there deciding whether to go back the way I came or try to force it. That's the moment the approach is built for. The one where a recruit stops reading the ground and starts negotiating with it. I've been in worse rooms than that one. I turned around, walked back to the last real seam, and didn't think about the 6 minutes again. 6 minutes is a cost. It isn't a story. I heard the others before I saw any of them. Screaming, twice, from the hive market side, cut off both times. Not killed. The compact wasn't running lethal trials that cycle, just knocked cold by compression traps that reset themselves between recruits. I heard a Chirath boy sobbing into his own comm line, forgetting the comms didn't work down here. Forgetting it for almost a full minute before the silence on the other end told him. I kept walking. I ate half a ration bar around the 2-hour mark, standing in a doorway, watching a drainage current for direction, and I didn't stop chewing when a proctor drone hummed past at head height to log my position. It logged me eating. I let it. Somewhere past the flooded quarter's edge, I found a Theric recruit, backed into a corner by a compression trap she'd triggered twice, trying to force a hatch that wasn't load-bearing. I didn't help her past pointing at the actual seam, a hairline gap where the flooded district's plating met the colonnade's stonework, cheap and unfinished. The kind of place engineers stop dressing a set once they've decided nobody's supposed to look that closely. Every fake world has seams. They're always cheaper to build than the rest of it. She used it. I kept moving before she'd finished thanking me, because thanking me wasn't going to get either of us to the spire any faster, and I'd already spent more air standing still than I liked. By hour 3, I'd crossed all 3 districts, staying on those seams, reading the cheap joins instead of fighting the expensive scenery built to sell the disorientation. I reached the extraction spire 40 minutes ahead of the next recruit, the Theric, who came in furious and bleeding lightly from the second compression trap, the one she'd triggered before I found her. I was sitting on the spire's lower step with my ration wrapper folded into a neat square when Vethric Sull's transport dropped down through the haze to log the trial's first extraction. He didn't say anything for a while. His mandibles had stopped clicking. "You are not on the aptitude registry," he said finally. "You were not briefed on seam construction. No recruit has cleared the approach in under 4 hours in the 6 cycles I have run this trial." "I wasn't trying to clear it," I said. "I was trying to get out. Seemed faster to figure out how it was built than to fight what it was built to do." He looked at me the way you look at an instrument reading a number the model didn't account for. Not afraid. The compact doesn't scare easy, and I hadn't given him a reason to. Just recalculating, slowly, in front of me, the way a species does when its own panel starts reporting something it never had a column for. The review board asked me 3 questions when they processed my file that evening. Where I'd trained, whether I'd seen a layout of the approach beforehand, whether I understood the drop was meant to be survivable, not comfortable, and that recruits weren't expected to clear it clean, let alone first. I told them the truth on all 3. Nowhere formal. No, never. And yes, I'd understood that from the moment I hit the ground, which was exactly why I hadn't spent any of my air being uncomfortable about it. They filed my results under a footnote, because there wasn't a proper column for a liaison escort who'd cleared the compact's hardest evasion drill on a clerical error and a folded ration wrapper. Vethric Sull filed a note of his own, one I only saw because he let me read it before it went up the chain. It didn't request disciplinary review for the intake mistake that put me on that grate. It recommended reclassifying my homeworld's registry entry on the grounds that whatever baseline the compact had been using for Class 13 worlds no longer matched at least one of their citizens. Nobody argued with him about it. Nobody ever does. Once they've stood on that step and watched the recalculation happen in real time, watched a number that used to mean something stop meaning it. I still have the wrapper, folded the same way, 4 corners in, every time.